Okay. So good evening, guys. Good evening, everybody. This is our podcast. The world is not flat, and our initial plan for the podcast is to discuss various topics revolving around geopolitics, starting from A, finishing by the Z. And going along the letters of alphabet. And what we have today is A, and A would stand for anarchy. And today we would like to discuss anarchy. So let's start from, hang on guys. Yeah, because you want to follow the script, right? So let's make. How about we begin from the meaning of the word anarchy? What does it mean in international relationships? Tom, wanna join in?
Yeah. Okay. Very briefly, the opposite of hierarchy is if you want to be as succinct as possible. But I think Piotrek, you can probably elaborate a bit more on that.
Thank you for that, Tom. Let me welcome everyone. Good evening. My name is Piotr. I've been pursuing a PhD degree in security sciences, and also I work as an academic teacher. I teach national security and also geopolitics to students at the University of Ostrowiec Świętokrzyski. And when it comes to briefing everyone into the concept of anarchy, we could say that the common perception of this concept, as well as the type of international order, is that when we have anarchy, we are dealing with a set of conditions and circumstances which mean that there is no overarching authority. There are no bodies capable of establishing certain rules that would govern the interactions between nation state as the units of international system. And instead of that, we are dealing with the so-called self-help rule, theorized by Kenneth Waltz in his famous book Theory of International Politics. In other words, everyone is responsible for ensuring their own survival, security, and power, which is the means that leads to the above mentioned error.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, quite right. But adding, I would like to stress that one of the major attributes of this understanding of this approach to international relations is that it's sort of understanding that lack of top governance is a natural state of being. So this is sort of like the external order, and this goes in contrary to another approach to theory of international relations, and that would be constructivism.
Obviously, because the axis around which our today's debate is going to be revolving is essentially the clash between the realistic and constructivist approach to international relations. According to political realists, just as you said before, we are dealing with certain external reality, a reality which cannot be influenced and changed by its members. In this context, those are obviously nation states. But according to constructivists, it is possible. It is possible because international relations are a social construct. That is to say, they are constructed and they rise to existence as a result of interactions between agents. So according to constructivists, nation states are agents. They are capable of agency. They are capable of shaping the international order. And through those interactions, certain meanings and values are established that can later govern the interactions between them.
Right. So maybe enough theory for a moment. How about we provide some examples of anarchy? Can you spot this specific state of international relations in history?
Well, prior to the establishment of Westphalian order, we could probably notice something that one of the prominent constructivists, namely Alexander Wendt, called the Hobbesian culture of anarchy, which means that, in simple words, everyone was fighting everyone, and the only rule that governed that eternal struggle was power.
Sorry, are you talking about the times before the Westphalian Treaty or after?
Well, that's actually a good question, because we have to decide whether the pursuit of political power, national power, has been somehow eclipsed by the birth of rules and values. I would say that gradually we've been able to observe the fact that those rules, those values have become a more important factor. What I was trying to say is that prior to the birth of Westphalian order, the concept of rules and values had been non-existent.
Say that again.
I would say that it is possible to claim that before the very concept of sovereignty, of state sovereignty, came to being in the year 1648. Yes. There had been no understanding of the fact that states, in a sense, deserve to be sovereign, and every possible means of prevailing in a conflict with another state had been legitimate. But I would say that starting from the establishment of the Westphalian order, what was changed was that it was impossible to claim that everything goes in the competition between states. So I would say that gradually, step by step, we have arrived at the world in which the desire to become more powerful than our opponents is now restricted by what is and what is not acceptable in international relations. This is okay. Of course not complete. I mean, this process is not complete, but sure. But it's not necessarily distinct.
There is just one thing that I need to point out, that the Westphalian Order begins the age of anarchy in European international relations, but it's not the beginning of the world. And prior to the Treaty of Westphalia, we actually had a hierarchy, right? So we had a hierarchical order in Europe where the emperor or Roman Pope would be at the top of the hierarchy, and then the sovereign power would belong to them, and then they could cede the power to European royal families, which confirms what you just said, that there was no strife for sovereignty in Europe, yeah, as everyone wanted actually to be a part of this hierarchy, but everyone would like to occupy the best spot within this hierarchy, right? So you would like to be recognized as a prominent European Christianitas, yeah. So the Christian kingdom, but still the one with the most influence, right? So that would be, but we absolutely cannot say that this order, that there was no place for morals and values in this order, in this age. I don't know if I understood you correctly. You said that the prior to the am I right, Piotr? Did you say that 1648 there was actually no place for these things?
Well, as far as empires are concerned, I would say that there are no, in fact, shared values, because those values are simply imposed by those that are the predominant players in international order. And I don't really want to say that the Treaty of Westphalia was some sort of historical breaking between the past and the present, because the history of international relations is always some sort of continuity. But what I wanted to say is that the Treaty of Westphalia sprang a world in which there needs to be some sort of mutual agreement towards the rules and values that are supposed to make up the order. This is of course relative. We cannot deal in absolutes here. But that's the way in which I want to perceive the Treaty of Westphalia, as basically the first step, or one of the first major steps towards creation the anarchy in which there is no overarching power, but in which there are rules which, at least to some degree, are supposed to be followed. But the history, of course, goes on and on.
Okay. For me, the Treaty of Westphalia would be actually the collapse of hierarchical system, of hierarchy system in international relations, and formation of national states. The initial stage of forming national states, staying with in the stage of anarchy in relations to one another. So yeah, it's the beginning of an anarchy in international relations, indeed. And I think Napoleonic era would be an event that would mark the middle of the age of anarchy in international relations. And its final episode would be the beginning of the First World War. So Europe, after the Treaty of Westphalia, with its power-shifting events and wars, with its creation of the most powerful states in Europe, that would be, while you know, after the great collapse of big hierarchical institutions, and well, lack of any new international institutions that would actually create some sort of I want to say order, but well, anarchy in international relationships is a form of an order. So with all its wars, with all its treaties, with all this plethora of players, big players, small players, that's what I call anarchy in international relationships.
I think at this point it is a good idea to ask Tom for his opinion, because he, as an Englishman, represents a country which used to be responsible for creation of certain form of international order, which was to a high extent, I would say, based on not only power, but also on certain shared culture and set of ideas and values. We all know that during the era of Pax Britannica, the great British Empire pursued power and wealth across the entire world, that is for sure, but at the same time was responsible for promotion of the Western culture, Western values, and right now we are living in the world of another era, which might be coming to its end, but it's still very much alive. That is, of course, Pax Americana. So, Tom, what would you say about the form of the current anarchy? Is it very different from what we were discussing with Łukasz, or is it still based on the very same principle, which are simply working in disguise?
Good question. I think there is an attachment in the Anglosphere to this idea of values, like the idea that the order needs to be built around shared values that we all agree to. And going back to, I see anarchy as something a bit different. Maybe I've got this wrong, but I see anarchy as more like this idea that you mentioned earlier of every man for himself and anything goes. And the idea that states need to be this idea of self-help we didn't really talk about. Maybe Piotrek, you can come back on this, but this idea that states need to be powerful to look after themselves and their own national interests, it kind of goes against the idea of shared values, shared liberal values that the Anglosphere has promoted in the past, whether it's Pax Britannica or Pax Americana. And I think we're kind of, we're moving towards like this post-American world where maybe it is going to feel more like anything goes, and that states have to really look after themselves. I think the Russian invasion of Ukraine, going back 10 years now to the annexation of Crimea, that really feels like an example of anarchy, where a country hasn't been kind of restricted by earlier what you said by what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. They've just decided to go and do what they want to do. So it feels like we're kind of moving back towards that idea of anarchy. But maybe Piotrek, I don't think we talked about self-help earlier. So maybe you can tell us a bit more about what that term means.
Well, I don't want to dwell on this
Sure.
Theoretically, but this is something that is, of course, a direct result of the realistic perception of international politics. And in brief, that means that in a world which there is no order, because that's how we understand anarchy, which I think is slightly wrong, and I think that we will arrive at this conclusion later on. Everyone must be doing their best to acquire as much national power as they need to be able to ensure their very survival at first, and then, if possible, also their wealth, prosperity, and fulfillment of their national interests. Nobody's going to help you because there is no hierarchy in that order. There are no institutions, there are no structures. So it's unlike in the case of citizens living in a society. If they need healthcare, for example, they simply go to healthcare center, they go to hospital. If they need to find a job, they can apply for a job. They can use the help of some public institution, and if they meet all their requirements, they will be granted that help.
Yes, but forgive me. There's one thing that I think needs to be reflected in this part. Anarchy doesn't mean, or the rule of self-help doesn't mean that there is absolutely no kind of or there is no any form of international institutions, right? What is different in the case of self-help is that you perceived these institutions as an arena of struggle for getting as many benefits or getting as much for yourself at the expense of another players. And
yeah, just to clarify, we can say that those institutions obviously exist, but they are not similar to the institutions that we have in our societies, because
sure,
they have no power.
Exactly.
They cannot make something happen.
Yes, and there is one perfect example that comes to my mind when I'm thinking about the golden age of anarchy, and that would be the era of the 18th century, the 18th and 19th century. So the politics international politics at this time can be defined by conferences, international conferences, yeah, where the ambassadors and heads of governments would meet up, and then they would discuss various issues. Let's say collapsing Ottoman Empire, which was a bit of a pickle for everybody, since UK was concerned in its sea power, or the sea power projection over Mediterranean Sea, while the Russians were obviously interested in gaining their access to the same area through Dardanelles, through Constantinople, through the Black Sea. Like I said, it's the perfect example, because they didn't want to establish any kind of order over these said territories, as much as getting something for themselves, getting getting guarantee that, let's say, if Russia attacks the Ottoman ports on the Black Sea, then none of the other players like Austria or Prussia or England or UK would intervene. So I think that's the perfect example of how players of anarchy use, players following the rule of self-help perceive international institutions, right?
Yeah, John Mearsheimer who's a proponent of realism, and he talks a lot about this idea of anarchy, a lot more than anyone else. He refers to himself as a 19th century person, and he says that people currently in the US government, when he's talking about the Barack Obama times, he was talking about Obama and his team as 21st century people, and I think he'd say the same thing about the Biden administration now, because it's a continuation of that. He refers to himself as a 19th century person, and he says that also he has a lot of support and followers, or a lot of interest in China, and he says that in China they're also 19th century people in that sense. So I think that is an interesting way to think about the modern times, when you've got America on the one hand, where you have people who are in favor of liberalism and maybe see themselves as 21st century people, and then people in the rest of the world that kind of want to go back to that, how things were in the 19th century, like you mentioned.
Right. Yeah.
I believe that as far as we are dealing with the war that's been going on in Ukraine, we are able to observe a clash between two realities. On the one hand, we have a country which is obviously outside of the Western structures, and therefore not entitled to fulfillment of any formal obligations, especially regarding military help. And on the other hand, we have the Western world, which is gradually coming to realization that if Russia succeeds in expanding their sphere of influence, and what is more, if the continental powers succeed in restitution of the very principle of the balance of power, which is not governed by values and rules, which I think is very important to be stressed, but based on spheres of influence, which the Western liberal states want to reject, then they will themselves be in trouble. So right now, one of the questions we could ask is this: do we leave Ukraine to fight this war based on the principle of self-help, or do we try to extend our own rules towards that country and try to help it, even though it is still not a member state of our structures? I would say that this is still a valid question, because the help that Ukraine has received so far has merely sustained its existence, but it has not helped that country to tip the scale in its own favor. So I think this is one of the questions which we should be asking ourselves right now.
Yes, but I think
what principle is going to prevail?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, what's more important is actually what's going on in Europe and States. As I would like to refer to what Tom said about the British and American values being absolutely contrary to the anarchy and its attributes, yeah, which would be the politics of, well, the balance of power and self-help. So these values ultimately prevailed for a long time. So we've established, I mean, they've established a liberal order over the transatlantic area, marking the end of the European balance of power, and that would be 1945 as I think the ultimate end of circumstances, international circumstances around the First World War would actually find its end in Yalta, Potsdam, and Tehran. So that would be the end of 1945. And now we are observing this order crumbling. We are about to see the thing that maybe we should discuss further in the next episode, and that would be shifting, this never-ending shifting of international order from hierarchy to anarchy, right? So these things always overtake one another, and that would be, I think, that would be a very interesting and very important view on the historical dynamics. How does it go? Whether we are in the age of hierarchy or anarchy, and it is very important to understand what anarchy actually is, as we are about to, as in my belief, we are about to enter the age of anarchy, which does not necessarily mean that we are about to, I don't know, to see the abrupt chaos. Anarchy does not mean never-ending war, lack of any means to solve conflicts in between players, and military solution as the only solution there is. Yeah, this anarchy does not mean it's going to be this way. It's just the end of hierarchy that was formerly based on liberal values.
I think what you have just said begs introduction of another term to our, let's say, theoretical framework. I think what we are missing, and what is actually a common misconception, is the fact that the true alternative is just not the one of liberal order, and anarchy. But I would say the alternative is between anarchy and chaos. I believe that it is important to mention a theoretical model which was proposed by the theorist that I have already mentioned, that is Alexander Wendt, according to whom there are actually three different types of anarchy, and this all arises from the constructivist approach to anarchy and to the reality, to the workings of international relations, because according to constructivists, according to Wendt himself, anarchy is what states make of it. In other words, the realm, the world of international politics is for us to shape it. It's up to us to shape it. So if we shape it in a way which makes it bellum omnia contra omnes, that's what it will be. If we do it differently, then maybe we will be able to avoid certain wars and conflicts. So I would say that currently we are living in the world which is anarchy, according to the very meaning of its term, because we have no just single source of power and authority. We have no world state. We have no global structure of institutions. But at the same time, we have some rules. We have some values. We have some limitations imposed, for example, by United Nations upon the proceedings of nation states. But if Pax Americana comes to its downfall, if the conflict between global powers for either the new hegemony or a new concert of powers is re-established, then we could probably see chaos rather than anarchy. My question is, how do you guys see this? How do you see this scenario?
Well, I see it as three main stages of the concept of international relations. So that would be hierarchy, then anarchy, and then chaos. And chaos is actually something that slips in between the former two. So whatever there is a shift of the condition of international relations, then chaos erupts. And that would be something that Waltz probably calls the young anarchy, right? Or the or fresh anarchy. I'm not really. I do not really agree with this distinction between the young anarchy or new anarchy and the.
You're probably talking about the concept of immature anarchy by Barry Buzan.
Yeah. So so you've got mature anarchy, and then you've got young or new anarchy. I don't necessarily agree with this point, because as I understand, both of these types of anarchy are completely intertwined with each other. So there are things that are typical for young anarchy that are still visible within mature anarchy in international relations. This is why I do not agree with this point. But answering to your question, I think that well, anarchy, there are some substantial instruments that anarchy has in order to keep the chaos at bay, and that would be the concept of balance of power. So we make politics in order to stay within the balance, and every time there is someone that would like to topple the balance, there is always an answer to that player. That would be France during the age of Richelieu and the Louis XIV. That would be coalition against Napoleon I, right? So as we can see during that age, France was one of the main players in European politics. Then we have Britain and its sea power and its trade and economical empire versus the alliance of three emperors. Yeah, that would be the emperor of Germany, then Holy Roman Empire and Russia. So these formats would pop out every time there would be a player that with an appetite to topple the balance of power. Chaos abrupts when there is no way and there is no will to establish any sort of balance. It's an absolute mess, right? An absolute disorder. And both approaches have their own means to keep the stage of chaos at bay.
Talking of chaos, I think my kids are going to kill each other in a second, so I'm going to have to finish soon. But maybe, Piotrek, if you can wrap up for us just in the last 5 minutes or so. Are there any, I mean, maybe you want to talk about immature anarchy, or are there any other points that you think that we might not have time to address now, but maybe at some point in future? I'll leave it to you, Piotrek.
Well, I would say that there are no clear and sharp boundaries between all these stages that have been very nicely addressed and described by Łukasz. I would say that there are always some transitions back and forth between one type of order and another. And I'm just wondering what will be the most optimal and most desirable form of order going into the future. I don't think we can do anything about the global circumstances in which Europe is doomed to exist. It's just one player, and also very divided internationally, that is trying to acquire as much power, ironically, even though all these claims to be an entity which rejects such ambitions. So on the one hand, nobody wants chaos, but at the same time, we cannot really say that everyone shares the same values, because that's the reason why we are dealing with this hegemonic competition. So the question which I would like to make to kind of open a pathway for further discussion is whether we should be trying to establish a new hierarchy as an answer to the imperfect anarchy, which has led to this hegemonic competition? Is it the most optimal way of, as Łukasz put it, keeping at bay chaos? Personally, I'm not convinced, because when I'm reflecting on the shape that European Union has been slowly taking, this is obviously the shape. Maybe somebody could call it a menace of federalized European state or European superstate. I'm actually full of doubts and full of worries.
Łukasz, do you want to follow up on that, or do you want to follow up and give us a final word of your own and wrap it up?
Well, yeah, coming to the end of our discussion, I think that, as I said before, it is very important to know the circumstances of international relations being at the stage of anarchy. There is also an important question about who benefits this approach. For sure, it's not going to be the top of our current hegemony or hierarchy, the opportunity that other players get out of the collapse of a hierarchy goes along with an extreme danger for those players, and I think that our ability to take control over ensuing chaos during the shift in international relations is one of the things that it's one of the initial stage of new powers being born. It's ultimately what states make of it. So that would be my final thought. But I'm staying in hope that we'll get a chance to expand on this on anarchy a bit further, talking about focusing on other subjects in the future. Yeah, with B, C, D. And so on.
And still with A as well, I think there's a lot there still to come back to in Anarchy. So let's call that part 1. And yeah, thanks very much, Łukasz and Piotrek, for your time, and speak to you soon.
Bye.
Have a good one. Bye bye.